Ni hao, friends. I hope you had a great spring break and are well rested. I missed you all. Today's greeting is in Mandarin, as we all speak in school. Every day, I will greet you in a different language. If you have a map or globe at home, you can find the countries and see where the languages come from. Today, we're going to learn about a way to help us think about what we're reading. It's called making connections as we read. This is helpful to the reader because it makes us think about the characters, what is happening in the book, and also where we see the same things happening in the world around us in real life. The first kind of connection that we're going to talk about today is something called text to self. In this video, you'll see me reading a book and looking for parts where I can connect to what's happening in the book to my own life. I'll also show you two ways to help you keep track of your connections. Sometimes it's fun to see all the connections that I make in the books as I'm reading. So for today's lesson, I'm going to go to our trusty book, Alice in Wonderland, and I'm going to look at just chapter 1 today. Now, when we're making connections, I'm not going to read the whole book, but when we read it the first time, we were reading it for enjoyment. Now I'm going to see where I see connections, Me Too connections, with either the character, the setting, or what's happening in the book. And so before I start, I just want to show you one of our anchor charts that we use. And an anchor chart is something that we see around our classroom all the time. So here's our anchor chart for today. And making connections, text to self. So there's me, and in my picture, the book that I'm reading, whatever I'm reading makes me think of a time when I like to play basketball. And so I say to myself, it reminds me of a time when. Now, you don't have to say those words all the time, but it's something where connecting what you're reading in the book is something that is in your real life. And we'll come back to the sun in a few minutes. So I'm going to just read a little bit of chapter 1. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And then I'm going to see and stop where I have connections. Chapter 1, Alice in Wonderland, Down the Rabbit Hole. Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and having nothing to do. Once or twice, she had peeped in the book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it, and Alice thought to herself, what good is the use of a book without any pictures or words? So she was considering in her own mind that to keep herself occupied, she would make a daisy chain out of the flowers around her to grace upon the top of her head, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close to her. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to show you that I actually have a couple of connections. So in their story, there's Alice and an older sister. Now, I know in my real life family, I'm the older brother and I have a little sister. So there's a younger sibling and an older sibling. Just because these are two girls and I'm a boy and my sister's a girl, that's okay. It's a small difference. And so, but there's an older sibling, me, and my younger sister, Kelly. So that's one connection I have. And so one way to show your connection is by doing something called Post-its. And if you have them around your house, that's great. And if you don't, that's okay too. But I'm going to show you what I do with my Post-its. So here's my Post-it, and if your page has numbers on it, sometimes books don't have numbers on them, but this one does. And so what I like to do is, because sometimes Post-its are sticky, they are all sticky, but sometimes they fall out, and I want to remember where I got it from. So here, my first connection about Alice and her sister are on page 1. So on my Post-it, I'm going to put the sticky part kind of on the page itself, so the Post-it is sticking out like that. Okay? But before I do, actually, I'm going to close my book and I'm going to say, put the number of the page where my connection is. So my connection is on page 1. And it doesn't matter where you put it, just somewhere on your book or on your Post-it. And then I'm going to say it's a text to self. Now you don't have to spell all those words. I'm going to show you a simple way. Text, text. So I'm going to do a T, and then I'm going to do an arrow. Okay, or maybe an arrow going back and forth like this, just to show that I'm having a connection. So my text is going to connect back and forth with my self. Self starts with an S. I'm having a text to self connection. Okay, and then I might either draw or I can write in words, or maybe I'll just remember that it's going to be big sibling, little sibling. I'm going to write it down, but you don't have to. So big and little siblings. And then what I'm going to do, so I have my page, it's a text to self, and I'm saying what it is. But maybe you're going to remember what it is, and that's okay. Big and little siblings. So then I'm going to go ahead and put it on the page 1 where I had my connection. Just like that. And so when I open it up, it's going to stick out a little bit. My next connection was that I've seen a rabbit before. Not one kind of, yeah, I've seen a rabbit before. And also, sometimes when I was bored, I would kind of make things with the plants. I didn't make a daisy chain, but I would kind of play with the flowers. But I think I'm going to stick with just that. Maybe I saw a rabbit too, or in my life. So on page 2, I'm going to take another Post-it and sticky side on the side. I'll do page 2. It's a text to self. And then I'm going to say, I would just write a keyword like rabbit. That'll help me know, like, oh yeah, Alice saw a rabbit, and I saw a rabbit. And then I'm going to put it on my page 2. And I'm going to continue reading. There was nothing very remarkable about that, nor did Alice think very much when it first shouted out, oh dear, I must be late, or I shall be too late, and scurried about her in quite a frenzy. Alice decided this was the most curious thing she had seen, so she decided to get up and follow the white rabbit. At a brief pause, the rabbit took out a small watch from its waist pocket, looked at it, and hurried on. Now, even though I saw a rabbit in real life, I never saw a rabbit reading a clock or wearing a waistcoat, so that's not where I'm going to make a real-life text-to-self connection. That would be pretty cool, though. She followed it on as it leaped into a hole behind a bush. Another moment, Alice went down after it, for not once considering in the world how she was going to get out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some long way, dipped down, so suddenly Alice had not a moment to think about herself stopping before she found herself falling what was down a very deep well. So I'm going to pause here for a second because I have 2 connections, and that's okay. And my connections are in my book, and I can see here I have 1 and 2. That's going to show me where my connections are, and if they fall out, I know, oh, it's on page 2. And on page 2, I had a text to self that we both have seen a rabbit. Now, this is one way you can show your connections with what you're reading, making a text to self connection. I'd like to show you another way, and this other way, this poster I'm going to show you right now, is kind of an example of one of the attachments I attached onto our document if you want to print it out, and if you do not want to do the Post-its, because maybe you don't have them, or maybe you just don't want to. If you want to find this easier, it's an option for you. So it doesn't look exactly the same as your sheet. Your sheet has a little bit more details, but this is just to give you a big idea. So here's my sheet here. In one box, I have the book, and I can write Alice in Wonderland if I want. It is helpful to write the title, Alice. I might just write Alice because I know it's Alice in Wonderland. I'll do Alice in Wonderland, and it's a title, Wonderland. It's a title, so it gets capitalized letters, okay? So here's the book I'm reading. Now, in this box, there's a picture of my little head, my floating head. That's where I'm going to put my connections. Now, I can put 1, 2, 3, as many as I have. So I'm going to look back here. I'm going to stick my making connections here just so I remember. Again, making connections, text to self. It reminds me of a time when, now, for me, I'm going to do maybe like a 1. It was the big and little sibling. Sometimes writing is hard for me, so you might want to draw a picture. I might do like a tall looking kid, and I'm still learning to draw. So I'm just doing a simple sketch. And a small little kid. I might even have them holding hands. Actually, they're both girls in the story, so I might give them some long hair. And then for me, I'm going to do number 1. It's going to be my number 1. I'm going to say same. And I'll do a picture. Me, because I'm the older one. And my sister is the younger one. Did I spend a lot of time on my pictures? No. I just did a simple sketch. So here, what's happening in Alice in Wonderland is a big and little sibling. There's Alice and her sister, and I'm connecting it with me, the same, except I'm an older brother and my sister's a younger sister. That's okay. And maybe I might do number 2, and I might say rabbit, rab, bit, rabbit. Okay, and I'll do number 2, rabbit. Maybe I could do a draw. I'll do drawing, let's say. I'm not very great at drawing, I just told you. I'm learning. So bear with me. Give it whiskers. And I can even do an eyeball because I've seen a rabbit too. So here we say, Alice saw a rabbit and I've seen a rabbit. And that's a way that you can make your connections. One way is to use a chart, like this one and the one I've given you. Another way that we've tried it out is putting Post-its in our books. Today's assignment is just that. Read a little of a book and see where you can make text-to-self connections. You can use the sheet I provided below or the Post-its like I just said. You can use words or pictures or both to show your connections. Sometimes I have 1 per page, sometimes 1 per chapter, or every few pages. It depends on the book that you're reading and how many matches you can find to your very own life. Remember, every book is different and everybody's lives are different. All right, I invite you to give it a go, have fun, and off you pop.